Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Well, good morning, Laguna Woods, and welcome to this special transportation informational meeting. And I'm here to represent GRF, and we're going to have Chris make the presentation. And we have on the screen also the president of AgeWell Corporation.
Yep.
So without any further ado, Chris, take over. Thank you.
Great. And it's good to see everybody that has joined us either through Zoom or through Channel 6. I'm excited for this opportunity to give an overview of a project that we've been working on for many years. It's an AgeWell proposal to kind of run our transportation system. And so I have a PowerPoint presentation I would like to go over, which kind of gives an overview of everything. So if we get that on the screen, please. The next slide, Liz. There we go. First, what I'd like to do is just to give a brief overview of AgeWell, who they are. And we have Steve Moyer, the CEO of AgeWell, who will be speaking a little bit later in this meeting. But I thought it was important to start the discussion with just giving a brief overview of who AgeWell is. AgeWell is a 501c3 nonprofit. They were founded in 1975, and they offer senior transportation services throughout Orange County. They handle all the Title III compliance, and they're very familiar with Laguna Woods Village and senior transportation throughout Orange County. AgeWell also owns the Flor and Sylvester Memorial Care Senior Center located in Laguna Woods, and they currently provide over 5,000 trips a month to village residents. So they are very familiar with the village, with the residents here, and so that was one reason why it kind of made sense to begin this discussion with AgeWell to see if we can have them help us provide transportation to the residents here. Go to the next slide, Liz. I'd like to start off by a little history of our collaboration that we have had with AgeWell over the last few years. Since I've started here, we actually, in 2019, we entered into a fuel agreement with AgeWell where they actually purchased the fuel for their 26 vehicles that go around all of Orange County. They purchased the GRF paid fuel at the service center. We get reimbursed for that fuel, and they pay an administrative fee, so it's kind of a win-win for both sides. That was our initial collaborative effort with AgeWell, and that has worked very well. A year later in 2020, working closely with AgeWell, they needed to find parking for all their buses. So working with the GRF board and AgeWell, we were able to come up with an agreement with AgeWell to have them park their 26 vehicles at the employee lot at the service center, of which they currently pay us, I believe it's like $25,000 a year to park their vehicles there. And that was just another example of the beginning collaborative effort that we have had with AgeWell over the past couple of years. These two collaborations have brought additional revenue to GRF while also providing AgeWell with goods and services at lower market prices. So it's really a win-win opportunity and a win-win relationship for both. And without these two contracts, personally, I don't think that we would be at this next level of reviewing this proposal that we got with AgeWell to actually operate our bus service here at the village. Liz, if you can go to the next slide, please. I just want to give an overview also of what they're going to be providing. AgeWell is proposing to operate the Easy Rider fixed route system. That's a system that's currently Monday through Friday We have our nine-route bus system. They would be taking over the operation of that. They'll be taking over the operation of our Journey program, which is our demand response program for those individuals who have special medical needs where they need the curb-to-curb transportation service, primarily from their pickup at their home and taking the doctor's appointments. AgeWell would also be doing the docent tours once those are back on track, any excursions with either recreation department, or I know sometimes we'll do excursions with working with the towers as well. And then also, once we start back up our destination shopping program, their proposal includes taking over those 5 programs. It's important to note that there would be no service level change with this proposal. The existing programs would be operating exactly as they are now, no time changes, no anything. It'd basically be this exact same level of service for those 5 individual programs. You can go to the next slide, Liz. As it relates, getting to a little bit of the nitty-gritty side of it, one of the questions that gets brought up is what happens to our current employees that are assigned to transportation, particularly the drivers, our coordinators, our schedulers. AgeWell has agreed to hire all of our impacted employees. That includes the drivers, again, the drivers, the schedulers, the coordinators. They've agreed to hire all of them at their existing salary, and so there would be none of our existing drivers would be losing their job, and they would basically just continue doing the same thing they're doing now, but just as AgeWell employees. So you wouldn't see any changes in drivers. We can go to the next slide, please. Before that, Liz. Yeah, one of the major bits of discussion that we've had with AgeWell as it relates to our current bus inventory. We currently have 16 vehicles. Primarily, most of those are large buses, but we also have some smaller minivans as well. AgeWell has agreed to purchase 12 of the 16 vehicles for an amount of $573,000. We came up with that number by working with outside vendors to get a fair market value. So it wasn't just a number that came from AgeWell or a number that came from us. We actually used our existing bus auction company that both of our companies used them to come up with a good fair market value, and believe it, both those companies were very close in the values that they determined that the buses to be. So I feel very confident that that 573 is a fair number. One of the things we're looking at with that 573,000 is those sales would be deposited, or those money, would be deposited directly into the GRF equipment fund. And so it wouldn't be put back into the operating. The reason is because if for whatever reason a year or two down the line, this program is not working and we need to purchase that equipment back, we would have a good pot of money where we could easily just repurchase those vehicles that we bought from AgeWell and have that money available to us. So we would work with accounting and a GRF board to make sure that those funds are available if needed to repurchase the buses. Hopefully we don't have to do that, but just trying to anticipate all issues. Liz, the next slide, please. The next major issue that was very important to me and dear to my heart is the maintenance of these 12 vehicles, because even though these vehicles would not be owned by GRF anymore, it was very important to me that the GRF fleet staff who know the vehicles, who currently maintain them, that would continue. So AgeWell has agreed to pay the village an additional $71,500 to maintain the 12 vehicles. And to me, this is really important because it would ensure that the vehicles that are out on the road transporting our residents are maintained at an existing high level. And we don't have to worry about somebody else who doesn't know our vehicles maintaining that and having those potential problems in the future. During this process, when AgeWell was taking a look at our inventory and the maintenance levels and all that. They were very impressed with what we do over there in our fleet services agency, and we're actually in the beginning stages of potentially having GRF staff or VMS staff maintain all of their fleet, all their 26 vehicles. That is not part of this existing contract, but it's something that will be brought forward to the M&V committee and the GRF board for future consideration when we're at that levels. But it's something that I see would be an additional revenue enhancer for the village and be a win-win because Agewell would be getting good maintenance. So again, it's because of these collaborative efforts that we've had in the future, that we've had in the past, we want to continue that in the future and try to make this a win-win for both organizations. Go to the next slide, Liz. Some of the nuts and bolts details of the proposal. The fuel would be purchased under the existing fuel cell agreement that we have with Agewell. So basically, the fuel that's used by the buses would be paid by Agewell, but using our fuel just like they have with the rest of their vehicles. Another key component of this is the oversight of the transportation program. The oversight would continue to be provided by the GRF M&V committee and ultimately the GRF board. So any major changes, service level changes, anything like that, plus regular oversight of the contract would still be done by the M&V committee and the GRF board. So to me, that's a very important thing, that it is still a program that would be provided and oversaw by the GRF board. And the other thing, the contract term, we'll be looking at an initial 3-year contract with 2 3-year renewal options. So we're looking at this to be a long-term commitment with Agewell. They are very excited, as you will hear shortly from Mr. Moyer from Agewell. And we thought it would be important that it be a long-term commitment just to show the commitment on both sides. And finally, the termination clause. There's been some concerns about what happens if one party backs out. Agewell has agreed to show their strong commitment to this program, to agree to a 1-year termination clause. So for whatever reason, if in the future Agewell decides to get out of this contract, they would have to give us a year's notice. That would give VMS staff the opportunity to either find another provider or bring it back in-house. So that gives, to me, it just shows Agewell's commitment to the program and provides GRF some security to where we're not going to be left in the lurch should something happen. I'll go to the next slide, please, Liz. I just wanted to go over this financial chart really fast. I know it includes a lot of numbers and a lot of details, but from an operational perspective, what this shows for 2022, by doing this proposal, if it was agreed to, it would show an operational savings for transportation of a little over $100,000, based specifically $109,242 for year one. We projected out for the next 5 years. I work very closely on this with our finance staff, doing projections, both revenue and expenditures. And as you can see, it would go from $1.4 million as we are now, as it's being proposed with the contract. And basically, it would include a 3-year cost of living each year, and that just kind of shows the net operating expenses over the next 5 years, basically going up roughly 3% a year. Going down to the capital side, what this shows is that year one, we would have some depreciation credits per se, because we wouldn't have to pay depreciation anymore for those vehicles. But also on the other side, we wouldn't have to budget for replacement buses as we have in the past. Typically, we budget anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 to get new buses every year. By transferring this over to AgeWell, GRF would not have to budget for that on the capital side any longer. Additionally, though, I did want to make sure, because the finance guys wanted me to make sure it's known that there would be about a capital loss off of depreciation. It's basically a paper loss by selling those 12 vehicles. There would be a paper loss of about 116,000 on the capitalization side of it. That's not an operational expense, but it does show up on the general ledger as a loss that first year. But as you can see, that would just be a 1-year loss, and then every other year we'd be having that savings of not having to budget for additional vehicles in the future. So those are some of the highlights as it relates to the financial side of it. I did want everybody to know that we have been working very, very closely with Jose Campos and Steve Hormuth on this. They're very aware of the numbers. They've been a great help to make sure that on the finance side, we know exactly where we are and what the exact savings will be. So just wanted to thank both of them for the work that they've done to make this happen. If you can go to the next slide, Liz. Finally, I just wanted to end the presentation on benefits to the village. What's the benefit for doing this? One, it will reduce our operating costs by roughly $100,000 a year. It's going to increase our revenue and also provide additional increases, as I mentioned, potential revenue increases with maintenance and things of that. So from a dollars and cents perspective, while it's not a huge dollar amount, it's roughly good 6-7% of our operating budget that it takes for transportation that we would be saving. Additionally, like I mentioned before, it would eliminate any ongoing capital outlay requests for replacement buses. But another thing that it would do, though, it's hard to put a number on, but it's real, is it would reduce human resources liability and risk exposure. By that, I mean it would eliminate any potential or future workers' compensation claims that our bus drivers, that we'd be responsible for the bus drivers. Currently, we had one driver that went through the workers' comp process due to some injuries that that driver had as a result of driving the vehicles. And also it just reduces our general liability exposure and any potential claims that might happen in the future. And my final bullet point for benefits to the village is I believe AgeWell will provide us greater bus options in the future. They have more flexibility for greater efficiencies, such as they have a larger and diverse bus inventory. So if for whatever reason we need to run some of our routes potentially with smaller buses, they would have the ability to do that. They have a larger pool of bus drivers. With today's economy, finding enough bus drivers to keep our operation going, it can be a challenge, especially with COVID-19. They have a larger pool of bus drivers to pull from should we need to do that. And finally, it just leads to potential for future program improvements. AgeWell, this is their bread and butter. This is what they do. They've been in the senior transportation business for many, many, many years, as you'll hear in a few minutes. And I just think that just opens up the potential for future program improvements to further reduce our cost and just provide a higher level of service. And I think with our current level of collaboration that we've established with them, I'm confident that in the future we'll be able to provide more and more improvements and just a better overall transportation program. You can go to the next slide, Liz. I think that's it for my side of it. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Steve Moyer. He is the CEO of AgeWell, and I know that he would like to share some thoughts to everybody showing their commitment. It's all yours, Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. And hello to everyone in Laguna Woods Village. I am absolutely thrilled to be here today. And as Chris had indicated, this has been a long process that we've continued to go through for the past 3 years, and it's just such a pleasure to be here today to talk about this. A little bit about Age Well Senior Services. Our long-standing nonprofit holds the Title III contract through the Office on Aging in South Orange County, and our district is 400 square miles. It's from Newport Beach, Irvine, all the way south to San Clemente. We've held that for ever since the Office on Aging has existed. We've had that territorial area. Our sole mission is to provide services and independence to older adults. Period. That's all that our nonprofit organization does. Is we just look to enrich the lives of older adults, and the more that we do, the better we succeed in our mission. The two main services that we provide to the senior population in Orange County is transportation and nutrition programs. We do have other programs such as running community centers in 10 communities in South Orange County. We own Florence Sylvester, as Chris had talked about. Florence Sylvester Memorial Center is located in the Moulton Plaza where the Big Lots and DMV is located. We operate the non-emergency medical transportation program for all South Orange County area also, and that includes our buses and vans every day being in Laguna Woods Village, transporting Laguna Woods residents to and from doctor's appointments, chemotherapy, dialysis, and other major things such as that. We certainly cater to the village, and as I go back and really understand the history of the transportation department in Laguna Woods Village, it's amazing that it started back in 1964, and really there's a tremendous bonding that takes place in transportation with the seniors that are actually riding the buses, getting to know the drivers, and developing relationships that way. And the one thing that Chris talked about is that we are going to hire all the drivers and a lot of the transportation department and run it the same exact way that it is today. And that is where if a driver is on a certain bus on a certain fixed route and picking up certain residents on a regular basis, that same driver is going to be driving probably the same exact bus and doing the same exact route, picking up the same exact people. We do not want to come in and make changes to something that's not broken. And that's one thing that I know that the leaders of Laguna Woods Village that are looking at us, vetting us, they want to make sure that there is no disruption whatsoever and that the service stays at the highest level. That's one thing that I assure all of you that will occur. There will not be any changes made. It will be very, very seamless. And as Chris indicated, one day the driver will work for the organization of Laguna Woods Village, and the next day they will be a driver of Age Well Senior Services. That will be the only difference. There will not be any changes made unless it goes through a variety of committees at Laguna Woods Village, and only upon their consent will there be any changes made to the program, period. The other thing that I will say about our organization is, and I'm proud of this, that we have had some good distinction awards, and in particular, we were voted Orange County's favorite senior transportation by Times OC readers, and that's Los Angeles Times, the Reader's Choice Award of 2019 and 2020. Obviously, a lot of things happened after 2020 as far as COVID, and I'm not even sure that they had those distinction awards thereafter. Also, most recently, we have been granted a special transportation grant from OCTA, and there were a total of 9 organizations that went for grants. It ended up where we received the highest dollar amount from all those grants, and the OCTA grant committee voted and rated all of the organizations that applied for the grants, and I'm very happy to say that AgeWell Senior Services got a score of 96, which was higher than every other organization that applied for grants. It's just something personally that we certainly are trying to do things right. We want to do it at the highest level. And being a nonprofit, this transportation opportunity totally fits into our mission, serving the older population, ensuring that everyone has the ability to age well independently. Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, so at this point, that ends our overview of the proposal. We are now open to questions, and I know that Eileen Pollan will be coordinating any questions that were received either in the chat box or through email. So Eileen, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do actually, and all 3 of them are from Carol Moore. Her first one is, she mentions that she feels this is a well thought out program, but she'd like to know how this affects the GRF trust agreement.
Quite honestly, on that, I would have to get back to Ms. Moore, because I'm not familiar with that trust agreement, but that's something I can definitely respond back to her in writing.
Great, and I assured her that that would be the case because she was going to have to leave the session to deliver Meals on Wheels, which is very nice of her to be doing. She also, another question, which is probably one many people would also ask, is doesn't GRF gain doesn't GRF gain by not having the administrative costs of the bus employees?
And that's basically where the operational savings are in the administrative costs. Because as we've mentioned, AgeWell will be taking over the exact same program. So the bus costs will remain the same because again, we're not changing service level, but where the operational cost savings come are in those administrative costs. We're not going to have, they don't need as many administrative staff to operate this program because they currently have staff on board who can absorb some of this stuff. So that the administrative cost is that $109,000 savings.
And then her other question is, can this plan be, oh, I'm sorry, I unmuted. Her final question is, can this plan be coordinated with Orange County Transportation Authority?
Not in the past, we have not done that. I don't think they have that ability, but that's something that we can look at. And maybe Steve can answer this better than me, but that would be a whole another level to this, and I don't think they would be wanting to do a plan such as this. And to me, it just makes sense to utilize this collaborative effort that we have with AgeWell, but we can definitely reach out to OCTA to see if they can make this opportunity even better. But that's not something that we've looked at right now.
Great. She's still with us, and she says GRF cannot coordinate, but AgeWell could. So I assured her, Chris, that you would reach out to her after this meeting, and I screenshotted all of her questions so that you can get back to her directly. Our next question is from Elsie Addington, and she says the proposal doesn't say that AgeWell will hire our drivers. It says they will interview them in good faith. Has that changed?
Yes, that has actually changed since our previous meeting as a result of the input that we received from the GRF meetings. The sessions I've had with the GRF board actually did go back to AgeWell and brought up that issue. And as you've heard from both me and from Mr. Moyer, they have agreed to hire our employees, and that is in writing. So yes, that is a change from the original proposal, and that was based upon the input that I received from the board meetings over the last few months.
At the moment, I do not have any other questions in the chat box.
Eileen, if I may say something, if Carol Moore is still on, I just want to thank her for being a volunteer for our program, the Meals on Wheels program. We're responsible for that 400 square mile area, and I'm sure that she delivers to Laguna Woods Village, and it's 500 volunteers like her that make our organization exist. Without that, we wouldn't be able to operate at the level that we do. So thank you very much, Carol, and thank you for your questions.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for those who have either turned into Channel 6 or are watching on Zoom. It's my goal is to provide the residents and the board members as much information as possible regarding this proposal. I do understand that it's a major change, but I see it as a good win-win for everybody. I believe it's a win for the village and also a win for AgeWell, and I look forward to working closely with the GRF board to continue on this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Chris, Elsie has her hand up.
No problem.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Steve. I can't type fast enough. I'm sorry. Has anybody done crunching? I understand about future exposure and future workman's comp and stuff like that can't be calculated, but has anybody, I know the $100,000 works out to less than $1 per man or per month. And I wondered if in the GRF future capital, that's assuming that we wouldn't be funding for buses at some level, but if we stop that, I don't have the per man or per month figures for the buses right now. So has that been done? I mean, do you have a number?
A number overall, Elsie, or for the savings? I want to make sure I'm getting you what you, I'm not exactly sure what your question is. I apologize.
Oh, well, as you should. Sorry, I didn't state it very well. What I meant was it's less than $1 per man or per month on the operations side. On the future capital side, that's the other primary savings that you're talking about, right? And I don't have those numbers to add to the 100,000. And I know this is all, but do you happen to have that?
The capital budget, Elsie, is handled a little bit differently than the operational side. It's historically,
I know.
It's historically just been a set number, and they don't do each individual project by per man or per month. If there's a savings in the capital budget, that just would eliminate any future reserve and things of that sort. So that budget is handled a little bit different. It would just give the board either flexibility to use that money somewhere else, or that money would go into the reserve side of the capital budget. So it doesn't have a direct per man or per month as like it does on the operational side. But that's a GRF discussion as when they're looking at the capital projects as a whole type of thing rather than individual. When you're talking per man or per month.
Oh, okay, I just thought that would be a good thing for people to have in their minds, that, you know, the public, if, when they were considering this program. Anyway, thank you. That was it.
Thank you, Elsie. So if there are no other questions, I suppose we can close this meeting.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and
Thank
we
you,
will be
Mr. Moyer.
providing, I'm sorry, Egon, we will be providing written answers to the questions for those people who have requested it.
I also want to point out that this is just the initial proposal. You know, there'll be contracts and all that will have to be done. And so there'll be much more information. And if there's a feeling from the village that another meeting is necessary, as time goes on and maybe the rules are relaxed, we can have an in-person meeting with members that are interested.
Chris, could I recommend that you tell anyone participating and watching where they can send any questions that they may have that come up if they watch this or seen the recording?
Sure, they can either send any questions directly to me or they can send it to the general manager's office. I don't know what's easiest, Eileen. I'm sorry to put this back on you, but I don't know the general information email account to give on air. I apologize.
Well, I think let's go ahead. We're sort of winging it here a little bit. Thank you, everybody, for dealing with us. We're, having these meetings virtually is always a challenge. Why don't we recommend that if anybody does have a question, we will make sure that it gets to Chris. And if you would use info@lagunawoodsvillage.com and just put in the topic line that you have a transportation question, we will make sure that that gets to either Steve at Agewell or Chris, and get to whatever answers you are looking for. Thank you.
Elsie, you have your hand up again.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I was just, this question is for Eileen. May I ask Eileen a question?
Of course.
Well, actually, I'm trying to be nice. I was asking Egon if I could ask you a question because he's the chair. I listen. You don't have anything from, I guess you don't, from the towers? I know that a lot of people at the towers are very interested in this proposal.
We have publicized it to them. We've had flyers handed out over there. Liz Cortez has visited. I sent an email to Lisa Armstrong. And we also announced it at the Media and Communications meeting on last Monday, but I have not heard, I did not get a response back from the towers, but we've made every effort possible to make sure they knew about it.
I know you have. I talked to the towers, and I understood they were going to show it in some kind of a meeting room, that they were going to have this on. But I just, so they didn't send any questions then, I guess. Well, they didn't.
Yeah, I have not. There aren't any in the chat box, but that's why I want to make sure that people know that they can send any questions to that address. Again, info@lagunawoodsvillage.com, and we'll make sure that they get answered appropriately. And I would also recommend, if there's anybody at the towers listening that doesn't have access to email for any reason, to maybe work with Lisa Armstrong over there. I'm sure she'll make sure that we would get any questions.
I know there were. Did you see Carol's thing in the chat? She talks about the $200,000.
Actually, that's from Jose. I'll go ahead and read this. So since we've been talking, we have a couple of additional comments in the chat box. And Carol Moore had made the comment that she thought the savings was closer to $150,000. Jose Campos, who is one of our financial services directors, just came on and said, over the next 5 years, the GRF capital plan includes $200,000 for bus replacement per year. And then Carol's just asking, thanks, is that in addition to the $200,000 saved? Going to need that to be answered by Jose.
Yeah, and I think that she meant the $100,000 if she's talking about the operations side. I think, but I could be wrong. When she says it's in addition to, because isn't it about 109,000, something like that, Chris?
Yeah, just for clarification, the operational savings is a little over $100,000, and the capital, quote unquote, savings, we currently budget $200,000 that's included in the CIP for bus replacement, so we would not need to budget that $200,000 in the CIP. So it's just the 200,000 is on the capital side, and 100,000 is on the operational side.
Thank you. And thank you, Carol.
Excuse me, I believe Jim Hopkins has his hand raised.
Yes, and in addition to that, I just want to let you know we have received 3 questions via email. So why don't we recognize Jim, and then Elise Rothrock will read those.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Jim, we can.
Yeah, this is Jim. I just want to tag on to what Jose had mentioned. Our intention is to continue to reserve for the buses until we have enough to recover if this plan, for whatever reason, does not meet our expectations. Within the proposal, there is a 1 year. We will be able to build back our system if necessary within 1 year. There's a clause there that allows us 1 year in the proposed contract. So we understand all of the concerns, or many of the concerns, most of the concerns, at least the financial ones. And our intention is to make sure that if this does not go as planned, and we have every expectation that it will go as planned, but if it does not go as planned, we can recover financially and operationally to continue the bus service.
Thank you, Jim.
So, Eileen, are there more email questions?
Yes, there are. Elise, are you where you can read those? All right, I'm going to read them. Hold on a moment. We have a question from Catherine Freshley, and she says, it appears that most of the operating costs are from grants from OCTA. What happens if the OCTA decides to reduce the support?
I'm a little bit confused with the question because we currently do not have an agreement with OCTA for our bus transportation. This is strictly between the village and Agewell. OCTA is not included as part of our transportation program, so I'm a little bit confused by the question.
If I can answer that or help answer that, I may have confused the resident in speaking about the grant we applied for and that we have obtained is that will allow us to buy a few extra vehicles. It's just in the nonprofit world, it's just a prudent thing to do to apply for grants if you can obtain them to help support something. But in the event that didn't come through, but it did come through, but if it had not come through, we have the means and wherewithal to support the program without that going a different direction, which is looking to our large donors, being a nonprofit, looking towards for foundations and things such as that. So we're not, I don't want to say that we're dependent upon it, but if we have that out there as a source. We look at all sources as far as supporting a nonprofit organization. I hope that answers the question.
The next question is from Kazuko Morihiro. I hope there will be readable documents uploaded of the proposal for us to read. So I think they're asking if the proposal will be posted.
At this point, it is just an informal proposal that is being reviewed by GRF, by staff and the board, and it's still, that proposal is still being negotiated. So I believe at this point, until things are finalized, it will remain that way. But once we get into the contract level and start negotiating the terms, of course, that final agreement would be available to the residents.
Thank you. The next question is from Ann Watts, and she wants to know whether the LIFT program will continue.
Yeah, excellent question. I should have brought that up in my thing. Yes, the LIFT will continue, and it will not be part of this contract with AgeWell, but the contract we have with LIFT to provide transportation services during the evening hours and weekends will continue as is, by either using your smartphone or calling into the transportation office. But that will not be part of this program, but the program itself will continue as it currently exists.
That concludes the emails that we've received this morning, and I don't see anything additional in the chat box. Let me just double check here. Yes, and Jim Hopkins makes a very good point that the Q&A document should be made available, and I know that's in your plan. Okay, I think that's it as far as the questions from those listening in.
Chris, we do have Miss Joan Milliman. Her hand is raised.
Great. Joan, did you want to get in? Is she able to get in? Okay.
You're muted, Joan.
Okay, while we're waiting for Miss Milliman, we do have another hand raised. One moment.
There she is.
Joan got in.
Okay.
Yeah, but she's still muted.
You're muted, Miss Milliman.
Melman, on your bottom far left corner, there's a mute button, and if you can put your cursor on that will free you up there.
Yeah, Joan, unfortunately, we cannot hear you. Okay.
It looks like you're unmuted now, Joan. Did she put her question in the chat box?
Yes, she can also do that. I'm sorry, we still can't hear you, Ms. Milliman.
Hey, Ms. Milliman, I see that you have a question in the chat box, basically stating any problems with VMS employees working for AgeWell. In a general sense, like I had mentioned, AgeWell has agreed to hire all VMS employees who are in transportation at their existing salary level. And so from that perspective, I mean, AgeWell has agreed to it. I have not talked to the bus drivers or the affected employees about their opinion of working with AgeWell. We haven't gotten that far in the discussions.
We have another hand raised from another Galaxy 10. I'm not sure. I don't have the name for this person. I'm attempting to promote the person to panelist. Okay. Okay, if you can unmute yourself and state your name, please. We see your video. If you can unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Oh, there you go. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Mary.
Mary is living from the tower. I'm Mary and living from the tower.
Go ahead, Mary.
Apartment 304. My question is, where is Agewell getting 500? Where is Agewell getting $573,000 to buy our buses?
Chris, did you hear her question?
Yes,
Okay.
and I will answer that. We are obtaining a loan, and it's a loan from the bank that we do business with, and it will be like an auto loan, and that's the way that we look to finance it, because our credit is such that we feel that we can get a very low interest rate, and we pursued that. But worst case, we do have the funds existing in our bank to be able to do that. But we feel that it's best to do an auto loan for that. And I'm just being, very honest with you and transparent. But that's the way that we're looking to do that, because we have the ability to borrow the money, and the auto loan rate that they will be giving us is very favorable, and so based on a better way to finance it, to pull the money out of our investments that we have and things like that. Good question, though.
We have a question in the chat box from Sue Stevens from the Towers, and that question is, Marion, I think we're getting feedback because you have two speakers on. I think you may have the sound on your computer also and on your phone. I think if you could turn the sound down on the computer, we won't have the echoing.
The question is, how are you going to repay the
We have the money to repay the loan in full today, and we have, being a nonprofit, and on our website, you will see information as far as audited financial statements that we make public, and you'll be able to see the wherewithal to be able to do that. Thank you.
The question in the chat box from Sue Stevens, who's a Mutual 50 director, is, will the contract include a provision for AgeWell to indemnify the village from any liability resulting from a maintenance-related failure?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Steve, and you can chime in if you'd like afterwards. Yes, when we start working on this from a contract perspective, yes, we will make sure that there's that the village is covered from a liability perspective. Obviously, in something like this, you have at-fault issues and things of that sort, so we will have to get both our lawyers involved to make sure that both sides are covered in an appropriate manner, but we will make sure that the village is covered to the fullest extent for any potential liability. And that is kind of the next phase of turning this proposal into a contract, that we would work directly with our VMS lawyer to make sure that we are covered appropriately.
Absolutely. There will be total indemnification in regards to something like that, and we understand that that's part of our responsibility. So, yes.
Question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Question. Okay. Is there any problem having VMS employees working for AgeWell?
Not that I'm aware of, Joan, in terms of if you're talking the legalities and things of that sort.
Yeah. Yes.
No, this transferring staff from one to another due to contractual agreements is pretty regular and standard. It's something that we would obviously work very closely with our HR department and Steve's HR department to make sure that we're getting everything done appropriately and legally, and that the employees would not be affected in any type of negative way. That it's important that that if this were to happen, that our drivers, which I know everybody loves, our bus drivers, that they would not be impacted negatively, and we'd do everything we could to protect them.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hand raised in the participants box.
Okay. In that case, we'll close the meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and nice to see you again, Mr. Moyer.
Great meeting,
Bye,
folks.
Darcy.
Goodbye.